Another disappointing night for St Kilda, and two coaches in a bit of a war of words. That and more as we take a look at the round so far. But Kane, the big story, has to be Buddy Franklin.
How good was he? Looked as though the Giants were going to surge back into this game after Sydney had probably dominated the majority of it. They kicked 4 straight to get within 10 points, and then this happened. Buddy Franklin goes bang from 60 with 5 minutes to go. To that point, he'd been held goalless, and only once in his time at the Sydney Swans had he been held goalless. So went on to kick 2 and was very influential, as he always is.
So good. Let's have a look at how the Swans were able to win by 16 points. And you've picked out the job they did on Lachie Whitfield.
It's on the back of them starting 0-6 last year when they felt as though someone from the opposition was targeting Callum Mills. Well, they flipped that last year, and that's what got them on track with the run that they went on to make the finals. This is what they did to Lachie Whitfield, who had been averaging 30 disposals in his last 2 games, I should say, and been really influential for the Giants. They held him to just 5 kicks on the back of this physical attention that they gave him. And I reckon that's when the Swans are playing their absolute best, when they're down and dirty and really targeting the opposition.
A shocking night for St Kilda at Etihad Stadium, just 19,000 fans there, and the Crows just did a number on them, victorious by 49 points.
You can't blame the fans for not turning up. A bitterly disappointing crowd of just 19,000. It's going to be a really long year for St Kilda. Their skill level is probably as poor as any side in the competition, and there's just no light at the end of the tunnel whatsoever. The 3 forwards in the forward line not working, and perhaps they need to look at that. McCartan, Bruce and Membry didn't play tonight, but they've had no influence from them, and just the lack of talent and A-graders on their list stood out again tonight.
And as we take a look at the road ahead for St Kilda, as you say, there's no real light at the end of the tunnel, is there? It gets pretty hard next week, Geelong, then the Giants. Where do you see their next win coming?
Oh, we know it's even, this competition, and on any given day you can upset someone, but you wouldn't think they'd start favourites until round 9, perhaps against Collingwood, and even that is a genuine 50-50 game. You've probably even got to go further to round 17 when they take on Carlton. So, look, they'll pinch a couple of wins across the way somewhere, but it's going to be a long year for St Kilda.
Eddie Betts is not our Saturday star, but we can tell you that his wife has given birth to twins, and he says that he couldn't get there, but he watched it on FaceTime, Kane.
Well, technology, hey, and great to see Eddie back. So maybe he got a boost out of the birth of the twins today, because goalless in the season so far for Adelaide, and bounced back tonight with 3 goals and was really influential the way that we know he can be. And it was a pretty ordinary looking game tonight, but Adelaide did what they needed to do.
Now, we tried to pick out someone who's a little bit off Broadway as our Saturday star. Who have you gone with?
I've gone with Paul Seedsman tonight. I thought he had a massive influence on the game. If you look at his numbers, he had 26 disposals at 81%. He had the most metres gained on the ground, 711 metres gained, 8 inside 50s, and we'll see the 2 goals that he kicked here. So, and this is the sort of stuff that we don't usually associate with Paul Seedsman. So I thought it was a general all-round game. Used the footy exceptionally well and was really damaging with his disposals, as we can see here.
All right, it is time now on the round so far to debut a new segment, one we've had in the planning all off-season. Little did we know, though, that we were going to be given such a gift to kick it off. It is fake news. Here is Alistair Clarkson.
He's going to keep playing like a bull in that sort of manner whilst he can continue to get those sorts of free kicks. But he's had 10 concussions in his career or thereabouts. The concern isn't for him right now. The concern is for him and the game in 10, 15, 20 years' time.
So let's set this up. That was Clarko on Friday talking about Joel Selwood and his ducking tactics. Chris Scott, the coach of the Cats, not happy at all as they departed for the West early on Saturday. Let's hear from him.
I think one needs to be really careful not to conflate shrugging a tackle with concussion, especially if you're using alternative facts to support your argument. The idea that Joel's had 10 concussions is just wrong. The number's 3, and I think even this morning we've had people repeat that error. So I think an error is probably the nicest way of putting it. They're just alternative facts. I can understand that Alistair was frustrated with James Sicily getting suspended, but I think any reasonable person would say that Joel was more likely to suffer a concussion from a knee in the head than shrugging a tackle around the shoulder.
He makes a few good points there, Chris Scott.
I am scoring it 1 to Chris Scott. He got the win there. Look, I think both coaches have a point, though. We need to do something about the tackle. It's an issue, and I put it down to the umpires to clear that up. They can clearly just call play on, and then the players will stop doing it. So it doesn't need to be a massive overreaction. So Clarko's got a point, but clearly Chris Scott has the medical backing and the facts behind him to say that, well, Selwood's only had 3 concussions, so it is a bit irresponsible of Clarko to throw the number 10 out there.
The other thing that's pretty interesting is the fact that they get along pretty well, those two blokes. I mean, they were at the Super Bowl together just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, look, they'll move on pretty quickly. I'm sure they'll have a phone call and a conversation about it, and we move on. They're grown-ups, and we love it, though. It's great for us, and it's great for the coaches to stick up for their players. I love that about both of them.
All right, let's turn our attention to your old mob, Port Adelaide now. They were lucky, weren't they? 5-point winners.
Yeah, they were. They were really lucky. They probably squandered some opportunities late in the game. Jack Watts didn't make the distance from 40 metres out, and they stuffed a few things up in front of goal. So they'd look at that and think we should have been further up in front. But the big concern for them is the ruck crisis that they're in, and you call it a crisis because they don't have a backup to Paddy Ryder, who's not going to be there for probably at least another month. Westhoff was well beaten by Martin in the ruck earlier. They tried Charlie Dixon. They also threw in Dougal Howard. But Stephen Martin's game today is as good an individual performance as anyone that we've seen in 2018 so far. He had 30 disposals, 49 hit-outs, 9 or so inside 50s, and was just clearly the best player on the ground. So Port have got an issue. They take on Essendon next week, and I think they need to pluck one of their young ruckmen out that they have playing in the SANFL and give them opportunity.
All right, here's a question for you. You're doing your team of the week on afl.com.au. Some ruckmen have had a pretty good weekend. There's also Brodie Grundy, Max Gawn.
Yep.
Who makes the cut?
I'm going to bend my own rules. I've so far only gone for one ruckman. I've only been able to fit one in. I'm going to go with 2 this week. So Stephen Martin, he's going to get the number 1 spot, and he'll be backed up by Brodie Grundy. No room for Max Gawn today, unfortunately, Maxie. But you have to do better next week.
We often hear about rule of the week, which the umpires don't like us talking about, coming out of the umpiring department. But did they have rule of the game today?
No, it's an absolute fact. Rule of the week is an absolute fact. Round 1, it was the 50-metre penalty for the encroachment of the 10-metre zone. This week is deliberate out of bounds. That was paid against Sam Powell-Pepper. He's kicked it 50 metres towards an opponent. He's pinged for that. This one's also paid. You'd think that McStahey is trying to do his best to probably keep it in. I thought he actually disguised it pretty well. He was pinged for this one. We're going to see one in a minute that wasn't paid, so the inconsistency is what frustrates, I think, supporters. Now, how that one there is any different to Sam Powell-Pepper's, I'm not sure. That wasn't paid, but this is the worst of the lot. Now, Mitch Robinson, late in the game, clearly with 3 minutes to go, is trying to keep the ball alive in his forward line. It's a hack kick off the ground. He's got no control which direction that ball goes in, and he's penalised for that. So a complete overreaction this round.
At a really serious point in the game as well. I mean, that's kind of the worry. So I think it's worth highlighting. We'll be interesting to see if there's more reaction to that coming up during the week. Now, let's turn our attention to the MCG. Melbourne victorious over North, but the spotlight is on former Crow, high-priced recruit for Melbourne, Jake Lever. There's been discussion from fans about his performance. Let's hear it from Simon Goodwin.
I think we need to give him some time, 6 or 8 weeks to really find his feet, find the right chemistry with our back six, and he was edging closer to his best again today.
The interesting thing about that for mine is the fact that Simon Goodwin's putting a time frame on when he expects Lever to be at his best.
Yeah, he did. He also said he's edging closer to being back to his best. I didn't see it that way, but I'm prepared to give him some time. I think he is a highly talented player. I've seen him play a lot of footy at Adelaide. He's only in his 4th year of footy, so you do cut him a bit of slack in a new side, only 3 games in, but he'll certainly be disappointed with his first 3 games, and he'll want to put in a better performance than this. And uncharacteristic skill errors and just the ease in which he's been able to run around, and his defence has been a little bit lazy at times, he's looked. So, I think he'll get back there, and it might take him a couple more weeks, but I'm not too concerned about his form just yet.
By the same token, though, I reckon you can understand why Melbourne fans might be a little bit frustrated because of all the hype about him.
Yeah, no doubt, but I think win-loss is still in Melbourne's favour this year, so that's the good news, and there's so much upside to come with him. Yes, they paid a high price for him. They're paying him a big salary. He's probably one of the highest paid players at Melbourne, but they got him for a reason, and I reckon he'll be a good pickup.
Now, speaking about hype, what about Nat Fyfe in Freo's win over the Suns?
Yeah, he set a record for Fremantle today with 15 clearances. He was flat in round one against Port Adelaide, but hasn't he been sensational the last 2 weeks? Best player on the ground today, and this is the Nat Fyfe, the Brownlow winning Nat Fyfe that we've come to know and love, and do love the way that he goes forward as well and hits the scoreboard and impacts in that way. So he was a big reason as to why they got the result they did today.
The Suns did hold their own for much of the game, but in the end it was a 28-point win for Freo. Pierce Hanley with a shoulder injury, so that's a concern for the Suns. Aaron Sandilands could be in a little bit of trouble for this as well. Tell us what you reckon.
Yeah, it was a late hit off the ball, really, wasn't it? So, look, I think he's in a little bit of trouble there, big Aaron Sandilands. You can see the effects of that. He did play on and didn't appear to suffer any concussion, so that'll be in Sandilands' favour. But off the ball, got him high, free kick down the field, so probably misses a week for that.
Yeah, all right, we'll see what happens with Michael Christian's assessment of that. In the VFL, the Pies have some goal kickers who might be on the verge of actually coming back into the senior team, which is what they need. Jordan De Goey, 4 goals, Jamie Elliott, 5 goals, and Alex Fasolo, 3 goals. They scored like 201 points in the VFL Pracky match today.
Yeah, perhaps the opposition wasn't that strong, but in a week where it's been mainly negative around Collingwood Footy Club, finally there's some positivity on the back of what they did to Carlton on Friday night, and then you look at the names coming back through the VFL, so pretty impressive sort of names, and you'd think at least 1 or 2 of those names, De Goey, Elliott and Fasolo, pushing for selection. And they'll need them because they got a tough 3 weeks, the Magpies. They go to Adelaide to take on the Crows next week, then it's Essendon on Anzac Day, and the reigning premier is Richmond the week after that, so it doesn't get any easier for them.
OK, let's take a look at the ladder, which is beginning to take shape. Port Adelaide is at the top with 3 wins. Hawthorn could yet join them. The Giants still in second spot for now. The Swans into 7th after that win, and we can see that Brisbane and Carlton down the bottom yet to notch a win. The Bulldogs have their chance tomorrow. Let's have a look at Sunday's games for you, and we've got some crackers, that is for sure. Richmond and Hawthorn at the MCG. The Western Bulldogs and Essendon at Etihad Stadium in the afternoon, and then West Coast and Geelong. I reckon they are 3 ripping games.
They are, and looking forward to seeing Jake Stringer against his former side as well, and just how Richmond respond after their defeat last week, and Hawthorn without Sicily, can they hold up with their defenders? So, and also the big 3 for their second shot together over in the West against West Coast, always a difficult ask. So 3 cracking games, as you say.
Now, one more thing before we go. How about this man? Majak Daw is his name. North didn't get the win. We couldn't fit it elsewhere into the show. But what about that from Majak Daw? He was really involved today, and he wasn't even meant to be playing. He was a late inclusion.
Love that. I actually saw him warming up for the practice game against the LES Academy early on, and they pulled him off before the game started with the late out of Robbie Tarrant. So he came in, and 3 big highlights. I did love the bump on Jordan Lewis. Just goes to show if you execute the bump the right way, the bump isn't dead in AFL footy. I
reckon Brad Scott would be pretty happy with that as well. Kane, thank you for that. We'll see you soon.
Can't wait. See you next week.
Kane Corns with us, and that is the round so far.